Hey, shalom, shalom. When I was in a Christian church, I spent most of my time. I spent about seven or 8 years in a ministry that was a non-denominational church, and it was a very balanced ministry in the sense of the male to female ratio, right? I know the Black church has a reputation over the years of being very female oriented, being more females usually in a congregation, and also the reputation in a lot of instances, and I'm talking particularly about the Black church, having, when there are men being more effeminate in nature in a lot of instances. So not overall, not as a whole, but that is a part of the reputation in the Black church. And so the church that I attended was very different from that, in that there were men present. There were about as many men as there were women for the most part. And the men that were present were men. They were masculine men. so, so, but we did a lot of work as a congregation, as a ministry. We did a lot of things where we had to work together, and we had a very um we had a very active ministry. So the men and the women worked together well, right? So there wasn't this constant power struggle going on between the men and between the women, battling back and forth for power. That just wasn't the dynamic that was there. Of course it wasn't perfect. Of course you had your issues at times, but we did a lot of work together, and it was a flow, right? So it was a large leadership team that consisted of men and women. There were a lot of people. A lot of us were a part of ministries, and it just worked. Like, and part of the reason why it worked is because a lot of the work, a lot of the teaching of the ministry was dealing with interpersonal relationships, and dealing with our inner selves, dealing with healing from past wounds, and dealing with how to rub shoulders with each other without wanting to fight. Amongst all of us, not just men women dynamics, but just as a whole. So there was an instance one time where there was uh we had a lot of ushers. I was an usher at one point in time. We had a lot of ushers, because we did a lot of productions. We were a pretty sizable congregation, and we did a lot of productions, a lot of plays and different things for the community. So there was a lot of us that were ushers to help facilitate that process, and there were men and women. And there was a point in time where the pastor was doing something, working with the men, just trying to help them develop their leadership into, um, just work with that. So for a period of time, there were women who were administrating the ushers, and he had the women who were leading that to sit down from that leadership for a while to allow the men that were on the team to be able to lead. And it was a very funny season. Uh, it was difficult. There were some things that were learned on both sides, but needless to say, that lasted for a little while. It didn't last for too long, and we went back to what was the norm for the team. But what that process, kind of revealed, was just the reality that we have different skills. As far as, on one level, men and women have different skills in certain areas, and then as individuals we have different skills regardless of who you are. So, and like with the ushering, uh sometimes men are great at, uh there's some men who have all of those capacities, but some men are great at, if you give them the direction, they can set the structure, right? They can set the structure, make sure things are flowing, if you give them the flow, if you give them the directions. But all men are not good at administration. And a lot of times women are better at administration, and being able to set up the flow of how things should go smoothly. right? So it just depends on the context. A lot of times, if it's a relational context, women are better at establishing how that should flow in a way, because we look at various details that typically men may not see all of those details in that context, right? So it maybe some things missing, and that's what we experienced with the ushering. There was some things that just were not thought of that we that we were thinking of and putting in order, that they hadn't thought of and hadn't put in order. So things were falling through the holes, you know. Um, so what we've learned is that it's better for us to work together and to allow people to work in their area of strength, and we support each other in that, you know. And what the pastor was trying to do at that period of time was to just develop the initiative and the confidence, right? And um because sometimes certain things can be out of balance if you're not allowed to, like some men have never been allowed to have the space to lead, you know. So they haven't had a chance to develop the skills of taking initiative and the confidence to stand up and make decisions and things like that. So that was his intentions during that time, was to allow space throughout the ministry for different men to stand up and to have that experience and have that, you know. So overall, you know, that was good. And there were also lessons, you know. And then sometimes, you know, also on the other side, women have been leading things, having been forced to have to lead by there not being anyone else to do it, and have been in that position for so long that it can be hard to step back and sit down when the time is there. You know, you can have an issue with control and not being able to step back and allow someone else to take the reins. So it was lessons learned on both sides. It was a growing experience, and ultimately, you know, we fell back into the flow of what worked for the overall goal and mission of what we were trying to do and accomplish as a ministry. So sometimes we have to learn how to work together, but the reason that we were able to function in that way is because we were not at war with each other. And I think it's because it was an environment of healing, and there was a conscious intention to develop relationships that were healthy, and there was a consciousness of healing and dealing with childhood wounds and growing, right, and renewing our minds when it relates to each other and our own selves. So because that was the environment and the climate, we were able to function, and it was not a power struggle. There was not a war between the men and the women, and there was not a it was just a healthy environment, like a family, right? Like how a family is supposed to flow. There should be love amongst a family. There should be a desire to see each person grow to their full capacity and potential within a healthy family. But many of us have not been in healthy families. Some have and some have not. You know, so when you have not, you you are wounded, right? You have deficits. You have areas where you just don't have, you know, some things you just don't have. You just don't have the knowledge of, you just don't have the awareness of, because you have not been in an environment to develop that. So you go into the world having this blind spot, and now you try to get into relationships. Now you join ministries, join organizations, join religions, and you're allowed to hide behind doctrines and structures. And when it benefits whatever it is that you are wounded in, like for the Hebrew Israelite movement, for those portions of the movement that are highly focused, highly paternal, highly focused on elevating the man, and are highly focused on suppressing women and using the scriptures to do that, it lends itself to those who have not gone through the process of healing the wounds that have been acquired through relationships with your mother or your father, relationships with uh siblings, relationships with aunties and uncles and grandmas, relationship with your ex-spouse or the mother of your children or ex relationships, the wounds that you from your teacher, growing up in school, things that happen in your neighborhood. You have wounds that have damaged you from childhood that you have not been able to heal from and get understanding of how it has affected you. So you take this woundedness and then you go into these organizations, you go into these relationships, and now you are functioning out of brokenness. You're functioning out of dysfunction, and then you're projecting that onto other people. Okay. And that's what we have in our community is a, you know, something can't hide unless there's a structure that's formatted for it to hide, right? So this Hebrew Israelite doctrines that have been pushed among, especially among the camps. I mean, it's rampant in a lot of, it's rampant all throughout, but mostly amongst the camps, in the camp environments. Not all of them, but enough for it to be something that has developed a reputation, right? So it lends itself to this brokenness and woundedness, and now you've been weaponized. Now you've been given ammunition through all of these false doctrines to be able to, it's like giving guns to children. That you're running around with weapons, and all you have on your mind is you're not mature enough to hold these weapons, these tools, right? So imagine you give children guns, and then somebody makes them mad at school and takes their lunchbox, and now they're shooting people because it's like it's out of proportion. You're giving something that you don't have the capacity to hold, right? So in these communities, you have a large amount of men who have not healed and are not aware of the energy that they're carrying and that they're walking in. And the word of the Most High is not rightly discerned, right? And scripture is taken and weaponized. The word is not being discerned out of the scriptures. The scriptures are being used and weaponized against the very community that you belong to. We're destroying our own home. We're destroying our own community, our own family, and fighting against our own selves, but then pointing the finger at Esau and everybody else that you claim is responsible for our current state of being, while you yourselves are playing out a script, playing out a role, and not being able to see it, right? There's a great blind spot. So the Most High, we relate to him as Father. However, the Most High contains both masculine and feminine energy. The Most High is a spirit. The Most High is not a man or a woman. The Most High said that he created mankind in his image, male and female. He created them in his image. That means that the masculine and feminine uh, comes from the Most High, right? So, and he communicates with us and deals with us out of both of those energies, right? So if you are at war uh as a man with your own masculine energy and with feminine energy, and they're not balanced within you, and you're at odds with them in other people, you also are going to be at odds with the Most High when he's trying to communicate with you through one or the other of those energies, right? So it's essential that you heal so that you can rightly discern who you are, who the Most High is, who your brothers and your sisters are, and be a supportive force, to be an edifying force in the community. The word says, Shema, hear, O Yisrael, O Yashar'al, upright of El, upright, straight, in alignment, right? In alignment with the power of El. in align with your power, in alignment. Yashar'al is supposed to be the ones who are in alignment, the upright, right? And we're supposed to Shema, to hear, okay? And we're trying to guard commands that we have not rightly heard. We're not hearing the Most High out of a place of alignment, right? We're not hearing and listening, right? We're not listening. We're not listening and hearing the Most High and understanding what He has commanded. It takes understanding and wisdom. With all that getting, get wisdom, get understanding, right? And that is a feminine energy, okay? So you have to receive wisdom and understanding first so that you can go and do what is commanded, right? So if you try to go and do what's commanded without first hearing from the Most High, then you are running off and you're doing your own thing. So then you're guarding the commandments like a security guard. Like out here with a sword trying to guard commandments, and you're cutting off ears, Peter, cutting off ears like Peter, while Yeshua's spirit is to heal the ear, right? So we're being Peter instead of being Yeshua, and we're operating out of the wrong energy, right? So instead of you're acting like a security guard to guard the word as far as other people. You're trying to force other people to guard commandments or force them to do what you think is the commandments when you're supposed to be guarding the commandments within you. You're supposed to be guarding the commandments within your mind and your heart and your spirit and your actions. You're supposed to be guarding yourself to keep the commandments that you are supposed to first hear and respond to based off of what you hear out of your alignment with the Spirit of the Most High, which you have to be able to receive the fullness of His Spirit to be able to rightly discern the word, the mind of Yah. So that comes from the posture of humility. That's how you become Yashar'al, how you become rightly um, aligned with the Most High. You have to start at a place of humility. You have to start at a place of humility, right? So through the place of humility, because it's the humility. See, it talks about, the scripture talks about how it converts the soul, right? But Yah's Torah can't convert the soul until the soul comes into a posture of humility, because that's the doorway to that conversion, right? When you come to a place of humility, that's what puts you in the right alignment with the Most High to be able to flow that wisdom to you, to flow that understanding to you, right? You have to be in a receptive place to receive the flow. You understand? So humility is the open door to be able to allow the word to convert you so that you are keeping the spirit and the life of Torah, right? Because the reflection should be a community that loves each other, not a community that's at war with each other, not a community that's trying to control each other, not a community that hates and despises each other. It's weird. Like, religion makes it seem like we don't even know. Like, have you ever been to a family cookout? Like, I feel for a lot of my brothers and my sisters, that it's like you have not been in an environment to experience and to know love, and that's really the problem. Because if you were, you would not have so much hate that you're spewing towards your sisters and your brothers because they don't agree with your same doctrine, or don't agree with everything that you have to say, or you disagree with something that they said, and now you can't wait till they're destroyed. Like, I've had comments telling me, like, you're going to be what's the word, massacred, or slaughtered. You're going to be slaughtered. I can't wait till you're slaughtered at the end of the world. What did I say to you, brother? You know, like, you know, it's woundedness, and I hate it for you. I hate it for you. I hate it for my brothers. I hate it for my sisters, but especially for my brothers, because until you figure out how to get into a posture of humility, you're never going to be able to heal. And healing is going to be a balm to your soul. A balm, BALM, not a bomb. That's what we got going off now, is bombs. A BALM, balm, a healing balm, a soothing to your soul that's on fire, right? Your tongue is setting your world on fire right now, because everything you say is showing a reflection of what's in your heart, and it's pain and anger, and it's time to heal. But I don't know where that healing is going to come from, unfortunately, because you have to figure out how to get to a posture of humility. And somehow more brothers have to rise up who are in that posture of humility and power, to be able to reach these brothers, and to be able to develop environments where these brothers can come in and be healed and be confronted and be loved into the reality of the kingdom. It has to come a point where we're actually really, really learning of Yeshua, of Yahusha, of the Messiah, of that spirit, to be able to have and cultivate the wisdom and the gentleness and the love and the passion, to be able to love each other in spirit and in truth, to be converted people who are walking in the spirit of the Most High and the image of the Most High, so that we can actually see the kingdom manifesting on earth. And there's some beautiful people without throughout the community where that is present, in pockets here, in corners here, in homes over there. There's pockets of people who are beautifully demonstrating that. And I just pray that it grows, and that more of our brothers, of our dear brothers who are walking in this power, if you can understand how important you are, how much of an anomaly you are, how essential that you are to the kingdom, to the body, to Yashar'al, to Israel, to our people. You are essential. If you are out there and you have the right perspective, you have the right mind, and you've gone through the process of healing, or you are going through the process of healing and renewing of the mind and the heart, you are so essential to the direction of the earth. The earth is groaning, waiting for the sons of Yah to be revealed, and we can't be revealed unless more of you stand up and sacrifice and 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 lay down your life for your brothers, for your sisters, so that we can come together in unity and overcome this wicked spirit that is prevalent amongst us right now. It has to be overthrown, and it can only be overthrown by those who can hear and Shema, those who have humility, and who can have humility so that they can walk in power like Moshe, and and demonstrate the truth and reality of the Most High that Yahusha revealed unto us. I pray that someone is encouraged and uplifted. I pray that the peace and the shalom, the wholeness, completeness of the Most High will find you where you are, and to invade your space, your mind, your heart, and heal you from every ounce, every corner of brokenness, the things that you've never communicated with to anybody, the secret things you've gone through, the secret things that you think, the secret things that have happened to you, the things that have wounded you, the inner vows that you've told yourself that have dominated your life, that you may not even realize. You told yourself this when you were 7, based on something that happened to you, and you are still living out of that space, out of childhood vows, out of all kinds of places that are not life, that are not healthy, that are not coming from light, but has been cultivated through darkness. I pray that the Most High deliver you and bring you into His light, and pours out His love within your hearts. Shalom, shalom.